Is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and I'd like to call to order this Westwood School Committee meeting. It's 7 o'clock, time to get rolling here, so we'll start with attendance. Maya Plotkin.
Here.
Tony Mullen.
Here.
Amanda Phillips.
Here.
And Charlie Donahue.
Here.
Great. All right. Before we get moving through our discussion items, at this point, I want everyone to note that this is a live broadcast and an online stream is available through the Westwood Media Center, also online at www.westwood.k12.ma.us/live. This is to provide real-time public access to the activities of the school committee in accordance with the March 12, 2020 Executive Order of Governor Baker. So without further ado, we'll move to our discussion items. And the big one, of course, being the elementary schools building project presentation. So Maya, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Welcome everyone who's watching. This is a special school committee meeting to discuss the school building project and to provide the community with an update. And more importantly, to get feedback from the community. So we're hoping that everyone is ready to provide feedback. Just a note, if you do want to participate in the feedback, you have to be on the Zoom link. Actually, well, if you want to ask a question or comment in the Q&A session, you have to be on the Zoom link. We are going to be using the chat feature to get questions from people. So if you're watching live stream or on Westwood Media Center on YouTube and you do want to participate in the Q&A session, just switch over to the Zoom. If you want to participate in getting feedback on the design and giving feedback, I should say, on the design, you do not need to be on the Zoom. The way this will work is we're going to go through a presentation. We're going to talk about next steps. We're going to do the Q&A. And then at the end, we are going to give everybody a URL for a Google form that will let you provide feedback on the designs that you've seen tonight and the sort of inspirations that you've seen tonight. And we'll collect that information. But we'll get into a little more detail than that. But again, for the Q&A session, you do have to be on the Zoom. So that's a quick intro. With that, I'd like to introduce people on the panel that we have tonight. We have all 5 members of the school committee who just did the roll call. In addition, just give a wave when I introduce you. We have Rob Fitzgerald, who is the project manager from Doran Whittier, our architects. We have John Walter, who is the principal architect on this project from Doran Whittier. We have Tim Bonfatti, who is with Compass, our OPM, our owner's project manager, and his colleague Chin Lin is also on the call today. And all 4 of them will be, assisting with the Q&A session, and Rob will be presenting. So we are very excited to have them with us. We also have Superintendent Parks with us here as well. And then some members of her team, Josh Baumer from Deerfield. I know Abby Hanscom, I see her as well. And the indomitable John Chancharillo, without whom none of us could function. So that's who you see on your panel. And without further ado, I'm actually going to ask Rob if he can start sharing his screen so that we can start the presentation. Oh, you know what? I missed Sarah Cronin. She's on here too. Sorry, Sarah. Sarah's principal of the Hanlon School.
Thanks, Maya.
Sorry, Sarah. Great. Thanks, Rob. So I think, so again, this is a presentation for the elementary school building project. Just a quick run through the agenda. We're going to give a project overview. And then I'm just going to give a quick update on the timeline of where we are. And then Rob is going to take us through the community context and design approach. He's going to talk about the site plan and the floor plans, the sustainability measures that we currently are looking at. He's also going to show the exterior model. This is in progress, sort of where we are today, but based on feedback from the SBC and from the community, it may change. And then we're going to talk about next steps. And finally, we will get to the Q&A and the public participation piece. So just to give a quick update on where we are, if you'll all recall all the way back to last year, we began looking the community input and visioning session back in October of 2019, where we held a number of community forums, a number of visioning sessions, all through that period from October until March 2020. And based on all of that, we had a long list of options in January. We had about 15 options that the architects came up with. The SBC narrowed that down to 7 options in March. That we spent the next 2 months really drilling down, or 3 months, I should say, really drilling down into those 7 options. And then in June, the SBC approved a final option.
May I?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We seem to have some background noise and it's a little bit, can everybody just make sure that they're on mute so that when I won't interrupt again. I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I do hear that. Okay. So, sorry, I'm getting Mike. I think that might be you, Mike Parolo. So where was I? June. I was at June. The SBC picked a final option, which was a new building on the Hanlon site for 560 students, and submitted that to the MSBA. In August, the MSBA approved that final option. So that was just a few months ago, at which point we then entered into the schematic design phase, which is where we are now. So it is now October, and we are at the schematic design phase. Looking forward, the next big step will be really finalizing this final design, getting cost estimates and pulling together all the information we need for town meeting, which is in the spring of 2021. So once we have the town meeting vote, that will be a yay or nay on the project. Prior to that town meeting, we will know exactly the estimate of how much the project will cost, and we will also know how much the MSBA will be reimbursing us. So we will have all those numbers for the town at town meeting. And assuming there is a yes vote at town meeting, we will then follow that up with a special ballot vote. And again, assuming a yes vote on the ballot, then the project is a go, and we move into design development and creation of what they call the bid documents, which is to start going out to contractors and getting bids. That process will take about a year to do the design development and construction documents. And then, assuming everything moves along the way we hope it to, we will break ground in the spring of 2022. Spring construction will continue for the next year and a half. And then we are hoping for a fall or winter school opening, new school opening. So, again, this is all subject to construction schedules, which can fluctuate, but right now this is the timeline that we're looking at. So I am actually going to turn it over to Rob, who will talk more about the project.
Great, thanks, Maya. So when we started looking at the Hanlon Elementary School, along with the Deerfield and Sheehan schools, we first look at the building and the site. And so when we look at the Hanlon school site, as you can see, there were a number of issues just right off the bat in terms of traffic circulation. There's very little parent drop-off loop. This loop here was actually a parent and bus loop combined. There's some parking right along Gay Street where traffic would be, or cars would be backing in and out of the Gay Street, impacting some of the traffic flow along Gay Street. And, we know that some parents would, in an effort to avoid all of that, would park on some adjacent lanes, waiting to pick up or drop off their students. And so when we started looking further at the existing site, we started looking at this property in behind the existing Hanlon school called the Shuttleworth property, and found there's about 37 acres in behind the building there. Enough room for an expansion or new construction of the school. And so ultimately, once the school building committee decided to move ahead with a new school on the Hanlon site, we really took a look at the woods in back here and draw some inspiration from it. And so when we are looking at the larger wooded area here that we see, beyond the Shuttleworth property, there's additional woods, conservation land all surrounding it. And so again, this really impacted our perspective on the future design of the building. And so we're presenting this just as a frame of reference to show the existing Hanlon School in relation to where the school would be planned to go, which is directly in behind the existing school. But as you can see here, we're really trying to take as little impact or make as little impact as we can onto that Shuttleworth property. Really trying to minimize the amount of development that we have. And we'll get into the site plan a little bit later on. In the meantime, I wanted to just kind of walk through a little bit more about the inspiration that we saw from those woods. When we walked back there, we found that we can really integrate this idea of a school in the woods into our design. The other piece that we developed as part of our design thinking and design approach is looking at the school through the eyes of a child. And so with these two elements really formed the basis of the design of our project. So as you can see here, also we'll make reference to some of the colors a little bit later on, but you can see the reds and oranges and browns and grays that are in the woods, from the trees to the stone and the earth. So taking a look at the site, one of the things that we did early on in our study is we held a number of visioning sessions with faculty and staff on multiple occasions to really get some feedback on the different options. And the result of a lot of those sessions really pointed to the fact that there's a great need for play fields and community access, in keeping the school a place for the community to go to. And so one of the features that we wanted to include in this is the sort of green space that really forms the basis for the community use of the project. So we've got the Little League field, which is currently over here in the current plan. We've relocated that to be where it would be located, where the existing school is currently located. And a new proposed soccer field would go just to the south of that. So we've got a baseball field and a soccer field with an entrance drive to the north with a bus drop-off area, and then a separate parent drive to the south. It would come in with a parent drop-off and with parking in between. So this allows all of that traffic that I was mentioning earlier that is currently kind of congested on Gay Street, come off of Gay Street and queue up onto the site. And so when we started looking at where do we put the building, we're really trying to keep that building as close as we could to Gay Street. And so one of the things we started looking at is, well, what are our site constraints? And so down to the south here, we have a wetlands area. As you can see in these orange lines are the buffer zones away from the wetlands. The wetlands are down here, but this is the 100-foot buffer zone. So we really wanted to stay north of that line as much as possible. So we've taken a big effort to try and achieve that. we also are bounded by this northern boundary line here. And so we've designed the building to try and just kind of squeeze in between these elements, trying to keep it as far east as possible. When we looked at the building itself, we also were looking at community side versus the private aspect or the academic zone. And so as far as the floor plan goes, we're keeping all of the public areas to the closest to Gay Street and the main entrance. So the gym and the cafeteria and the main entrance are all in this area here, with these classrooms, these academic wings located here, kind of like branches or fingers kind of extending into the woods. And really that kind of brings forward that idea of having a school in the woods, trying to integrate as much as possible into that wooded area. And so when we started to develop the design, we also were looking at the exterior spaces with the building. So, what can we do to integrate the classroom spaces with the outdoor spaces? So you'll see on the plan here, we've got a few of these outdoor classrooms, and they're directly outside of each one of these wings. I'll get into the floor plan in a minute, and I can show you a little bit more about the relationship of the indoor to the outdoor. Then on the north side here are more of like hardscape and structured playground areas directly outside of the classroom. Service drive over here, and then integrating as many new trees as we can as well. Really trying to again make this building feel like it's a school in the woods. Finally, this brown or reddish brown dash line here is this existing walking trail. That there's a trailhead here where people have been historically coming up and going into towards the Lowell Woods. And so recognizing that we're constructing this building right in this location where it's crossing this trail, we're proposing to provide kind of an enhanced trail to the north here that would loop around the existing building and then reconnect to the Lowell Trail leading out there. And so what this provides is an opportunity for us to create a few parking spots down in this area so that people that are interested in going to those woods can park their cars and then go along this trail and skirt around the proposed project. If there's any questions on this, we can cover those later. We can come back to the site. So the site inspirational imagery that we've been thinking about is kind of a mix of some structured playgrounds that take advantage of the contoured site. We know that at the northern end of the site, the property is a little bit higher from the southern end of the site. And so and there are a fair number of variations in the contours. And so we're trying to take advantage of that and use that to our benefit by integrating that with maybe some of the play areas for students, as well as, again, similar to what I mentioned earlier, this could be an example of like an outdoor learning space. Possibly, stone benches and trees that are integrated with the landscape as we approach the school. So taking a closer look at some of these outdoor areas, these are these outdoor classrooms that I mentioned. We're imagining, potentially having kind of a sensory discovery learning walk that would connect each of these outdoor spaces. So the way that the school is designed is this would be a K1 wing, 2, 3, and 4, 5. And outside of each of these wings, students would have the ability to go outside with their teachers and explore. Maybe these have different themes. Maybe one has like a theme about the birds that are in the woods. Another one has a theme about small animals that might be living in those woods, and maybe another one might be more amphibian with the wetlands. But again, trying to integrate the natural surroundings with education that's happening inside the school. So when we look at the first floor plan, I mentioned this is the gym, so it's closest to the public, closest to parking for events. This is an oversized gym than would normally be sized for this size of the school. The school building committee determined very early in the process that there is a high need for additional basketball space in the community. So this is about twice the size of a gym that would be normally expected for a school of this size. So that is a huge community benefit, and like I said, easy community access and easy access down to the fields down below as well. You come in the main entrance here with the administration area to the left through secure vestibules, cafeteria and kitchen with easy access for the service drives come in off the north. Two music rooms directly in behind a platform or stage. So with easy access to bring equipment or instruments on and off of the stage. And then here would be the public-private separation. So after hours, that these doors would lock so that this entire area would be closed off from the rest of the building. And so, or vice versa. And so over here we have the kindergarten wing, second and third grade, and then fourth and fifth above, first grade above here. Each of these wings is a grade level cluster that surrounds an extended learning space. So these extended learning areas allow for teachers to collaborate with other teachers in that grade level. Maybe they're working on a project together. We have planned wet project space there, so they might come out and work on a science project together in these extended learning spaces with views out to the woods out of each end, and then access through to the outdoors directly from that extended learning space. The pink areas are student support spaces. So each of these are small group rooms where teachers can bring students for remedial assistance as needed. And then down here on the southern end is the Library Media Center, flanked by the art and STEM, or science, technology, engineering, math. And so the idea here is that these three can really work together well to form kind of a collaborative environment to really engage students in a number of different subject matter and potentially cross-collaborate. Moving up to the second floor, we have, here's the first grade, fourth and fifth, with the second floor of the library. The other nice thing about this layout is that it allows some flexibility in the configuration of the grade. So if there's a desire to have, let's say, fourth grade on the bottom below this fifth grade level, you can do that because it's the same configuration in each wing. So looking inside, just a snapshot of one area of the building. This shows the media center, the art, and the STEM lab. So the idea is that these would also have direct access to the outside, to this, what we're calling a steam porch. So out here, you might have access to water. Students that are doing art could come out on nice days and work on projects. Maybe they're doing some collection of specimens outside, and working on something out on this sort of outer concrete deck area related to science. And then with the media center, directly right there. There's plenty of opportunity to look up books on frogs or whatever the subject matter is. And so this is really exciting from our perspective because it really extends this idea of collaborative teaching and collaboration among students, which is something that we're seeing carrying through all the way through middle school and high school and beyond. So again, with the wooded areas down below. So looking at the construction phasing, this is in red here is the existing Hanlon school. So the way that we would envision the phasing of the project to go is that a contractor would come in and construct a fence that would separate out the construction area from the existing school. And one of the key elements that came through on that early on is that the existing school wanted to keep ongoing during construction, so the least amount of impact to existing construction as possible. I'm sorry, the least impact to existing school. Keep the school going at the same time. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So we're constructing this fencing here. The contractor comes in and builds the new school. Meanwhile, the school keeps going. In this very first phase, the idea is to separate out this potential area where we would construct this trail so that the community can still continue to access the Lowell Woods Trail during construction. So this would be all fenced in around this to cordon this off from the public wanting to get up through those woods. So after the completion of construction, then students would move in, and then in the final phase, the existing building would be raised and the fields would be constructed out here and the project would be complete. So this is a rough timeline here. You can see, as May mentioned, probably be about a year before this shovels in the ground. We have continued design development and construction documents to put together to put it out to bid. Roughly spring 2022 to fall of 2023 for the actual construction of the building itself. Move students in, and then in that fall and winter, demolish the existing building and complete the remaining fields into 2023. And existing school remains in continuous operation throughout construction. So going on to the sustainability aspects, this is something that we've been working hard for the last 7 months on. The school building committee developed a sustainability subcommittee that was formed, and working closely with this group, we've been studying a number of different elements to determine whether it makes sense to include in the project. And so where we're at now is that this building is ready to be net zero energy ready. We've got photovoltaic infrastructure set up in the design so that photovoltaic panels could be added to the roof. We are a fossil fuel free design now. We are planning to use geothermal wells for heating and cooling. So there would be no fossil fuels used to heat or cool the building. We are planning to include a high performance ventilation system that meets all of the COVID response guidelines. One of the state of the art ventilation systems that is currently being designed. We have a super insulated thermal envelope meeting passive house air infiltration standards. And we're currently targeting LEED Silver version 4. LEED stands for Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design. And so it's just a method or a system of documenting green buildings. So coming back to the exterior materials palette, so as I mentioned before, we've been looking at the woods, at those grays and browns and reds and tones, really the earth, the trees, the stone. And so when we look at the palette that we're trying to draw from those woods, we've got various shades of grays and browns and reds, from brick masonry to a rain screen product that looks very similar to wood. It actually has a wood veneer in it that is then coated with a very hard resin to protect it so that it's very durable to the weather. So looking at the exterior inspiration board that we've developed, these are images that we've shared with the school building committee and have been, you can see some of these different comments on here on the different photographs, seeking input and feedback from the school building committee. And so tonight we've also placed these photos into a Google Docs form, which Maya mentioned earlier. And we'll be allowing all of you that are participating tonight to provide some comments and feedback on each of them. And so that will help guide and shape the direction of the design. And so the school building committee is really looking for your input and feedback, just as we have in past presentations throughout the course of the study. So we're looking to continue that tonight. So this is a overview of the exterior model in progress. This is a very kind of conceptual piece of software that allows us flexibility to make modifications very quickly. As we continue to develop the design, we will be transferring this into a different piece of software that will be a little bit more realistic. But in the meantime, this should give you a sense of the design and direction that we're headed. So just to orient you a little bit, this is the bus loop here, the parent drop-off. The main entrance to the building is right here with the entrance canopy. Our intention here is that this entrance canopy will be drawing students into the building. This is the gym. Administration, cafeteria, the K1 wing, and then the 2 through 5 classroom wing here. So looking at the building, stepping back from the southern entrance to the site from Gay Street, this is that view. So this is that southern classroom wing and entrance and gym. This is a view from the middle, so heading north along Gay Street. As you can see that all of this area would be those play fields out in front between Gay Street and the building. Some of the, as I flip through some of these slides here, you'll see that some of the elements that we've tried to integrate is taking cues from the verticality of the trees and wanting to complement that by having some horizontal elements. And so you'll see we're trying to create this horizontal bands through the design. And we're also looking at trying to bring the scale of the building down as much as we can, again, through the eyes of the child and from their perspective. So we are looking at keeping the height of the building as low as possible, and having a combination of materials and shapes and elements to, again, break the scale of the building down. So this is looking at the main entrance. Let's say you're standing here in the bus loop and you're walking along, and this is the main entrance canopy here. The gym to the right and that southern classroom wing to the left. This is a view from the parent drop-off area with the southern classroom here, the entrance in the middle, and then the gym. And as you can see here, again, trying to bring the scale of the building down by a combination of different elements. So here we're imagining, this would be brick masonry. We're looking at either brick or stone, potentially along this darker gray band. And then this upper area here is that rain screen product that looks a lot like wood. An example of this you can see at the Sunita Williams Elementary School in Needham, similar to that. I know that there's a number of other buildings in and around Boston and throughout New England and in the world, actually, where this product is used. So we're trying to bring this sort of sense of warmth to the site and integrate it in throughout the building to, again, break down portions of the building, but have it feel as one cohesive whole. Looking at the entrance, again, wanting to look at the scale of the entrance canopy and have that low at be considerate of child's height. Here we have an entrance element. Could be an artistic sculpture. It could be a sign. But essentially it says, hey, you've arrived at the entrance to the building. This is looking at the entrance here. And another aspect of this is that we are really trying to take into consideration the site orientation of the building. I don't think I talked about that previously, but we've oriented the building so that the majority of the classrooms are facing either north or south. And really, this is a way to allow us to have the best control of the light coming into the building. So on the south side, we're able to integrated shading to provide the ability so that people on the south side of the building don't need to have their blinds down all the time. And so this integrated shading element into the school allows them to be able to see directly out to the woods. Here you can see this is actually a snapshot in time. We started exploring some ideas of making some of these classroom windows larger. This is some of the feedback that we had heard, and so I literally just kind of grabbed this model while it was being worked on. So you'll see that also in some images on the forms. If anyone is wondering, that's why, is because we're still exploring and using this model as a tool. So here you have the art and STEM, and you can see we're really making a strong effort at integrating this design to be a cohesive element along the educational line. The other aspect is that we're trying to make this feel warm and inviting for students by integrating that into the building. So taking a closer look at the steam porch, we are anticipating an outdoor covered area. This would allow some students to come outside even when it's raining, to work on projects together. And so this presents a really nice space. You can see the ability to cross collaborate between art and science in the library in this whole area. This is a view from above, just showing some of the louvers in here that it would be integrated into the shading for those classrooms there. And then a view from above, doing an overall view. We also have some skylights integrated into the building to bring as much natural light as we can into the building. We want this to be a light and an airy, bright space for students. So that's the overview of the model. Next steps is in November, we'll be submitting the schematic design package for cost estimating. We'll receive them in December. The school building committee will vote on that submission to the MSBA towards the end of December, and we'll submit that to them, to the MSBA at that time as well. And then in the spring, there's currently planning to have a town meeting and ballot vote to vote on the project. So now is the fun part. We get to invite you to participate in this process with us. Again, this is a snapshot in time of where we're at in the design. And so we're really looking forward to hearing your feedback on the work that we've done. So this is the website address here, tinyurl.com/oct13 forum, so October 13th forum. So if you could write that down, and you can go to that and participate. I'm going to click on it right now, and I'm just going to walk you through what you're going to see there. So you open up that page, and you'll start to see these images. We're trying to keep this light, so you've got some bullets here to make it easy to just kind of click through. You can put any additional thoughts you have about the image. You can look at them in different ways, different aspects of the image that you like or dislike, the things that you're drawn to. This is the City of Williams School. So this is that similar type of main screen product that I was referring to earlier. And so you'll kind of scroll through some of these things and just put your thoughts down. Looking forward to hearing your feedback on each one of these different things. Someone might look at this and say, why is that on there? But really, it's an inspiration board. These are elements that we are looking to and integrate into our project. And so we'd like to think about these kind of things in a creative way. And maybe there's some sort of way that we can integrate this sort of skylight image into our project. So as you scroll down to the end here, you'll get to the images that I just presented. So those are all on here as well, and you can comment or put your thoughts down on that. So that's that. And now, whoops. Yeah, I guess we were done. We were just getting to the questions. So, May, if you want to go over any questions that people have?
Sure. So just a reminder to people, if you have a question, just put it in the chat, and I'll be reading each question, and then we'll answer them as best we can. Also, I just wanted to make a note with the Google form that will be open until 9 p.m. I think, Rob, is that right, tonight?
Yes, that's correct.
So anytime between, I think it's open now. So anytime between now and 9, go in there. If you see an image, and I know the options were, I like it, I don't like it, I have no opinion. If you like things about it and don't like things about the same image, pick whichever feeling you're feeling more of, and then just explain in the comments what you liked and what you didn't like. We're trying to replicate walking around with stickies like we did in the other forums, and this was the best we could come up with. So hopefully it works. But I encourage everybody to go on. Again, it'll close at 9. So if you can get in there before, we're going to try and wrap this up to give you enough time to get in there. So I'm going to start reading the questions. And Rob, I'm not sure if it would be helpful to put the site, at least the site plan, back up on the screen.
Sure.
Just in case people have questions about that. So while you're doing that, I'm just going to jump in. We have a question from Josepha Jowdy. who's on the school building committee. And she's asking, why is the first grade on the second floor and not close to the kindergarten? I think Rob mentioned that the first grade was right now on top of the kindergarten wing. And I'm actually going to turn this over to Emily. I don't think that these grade assignments are set in stone, but Emily, if you don't mind, if you could just speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, so I think our thinking was that we would keep the kindergarten and first grade kids all in the same wing, so one on top of the other. But as Maya just said, other than the kindergarten classrooms, which have bathrooms built into the classrooms and therefore are a little bit bigger, are designed for kindergarten, the other classrooms are interchangeable. So we could make those decisions once in the building about where we want each grade to be located.
Thank you. So this is a comment from Abby Hanscom, our Director of Student Services. She writes, making sure the STEAM porches are fully accessible and have turning radius, etc., for students who use wheelchairs is important to keep in mind. Important to think about the porches having enough room for other classmates to join as partners is key. And absolutely, Abby, we are definitely looking at accessibility in all areas, including the outdoor classrooms and the STEAM porches, and making sure that all students have an opportunity to participate in everything with respect to this school. So thank you for that comment, very important. This is a question from Mark. Hello, this presentation is very helpful. It's hard to tell without seeing measurements to determine width of corridor, but it seems like each of the classroom wings kind of bottlenecks into a single corridor. Can you speak to the flow of students on each level and the corridor being adequate to be free flow without congestion? So Rob, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's difficult to understand the scale of the building at this, from just seeing it on the screen. But these corridors are actually very large. This extending learning area, for example, I think is, about 20 feet wide in some of these areas. So there's plenty of room throughout this building and throughout the corridors for students to travel.
Okay, thanks, Rob. This question is from Christina Martin. I joined late, so not sure if you are taking comments. If you are, I'm concerned that the current design looks very cold, sterile, institutional. The mismatched windows look more odd than whimsical. This does not strike me as a timeless design. We want this school to make sense 5, 10, 25, 50 years from now. So this is exactly why we're having this community forum, to get feedback from the community. I will tell you that the mismatched windows were something that people on the SBC have raised already. And I think that Doran Whittier has heard from us on the mismatched windows. They are present at the high school. So I think people who are familiar with the high school are familiar with that look, but I think Doran Whittier may be taking another look at those windows. But again, this is the kind of feedback we'd love, and you could put this on the Google form, and that's the best place for us to collect it. From Robert Christopherson, has the traffic congestion been addressed? So I'll let Rob speak a little bit more to this. I can say that we did an initial traffic study pre-COVID, I should say, a pre-COVID traffic study back in December when we were doing the feasibility study. And that was looking at at the 2 sites where we were thinking about putting the school. So we didn't do a particularly deep dive into Hanlon. We did a more general study, and we are now going to be doing a much deeper dive into this site specifically. And I believe that study is going to take place in the next few weeks. We do realize that it's during COVID, so traffic is less. So I think they'll be taking that into account using data that they got from their first study, but we are going to look at traffic again, much more in depth. Having said that, I'm going to ask Rob, can you speak to some of the ways we are hoping to mitigate the current traffic problems that we have?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing, as I mentioned earlier, is that by creating these, excuse me, these driveways leading up to the building, it's allowing all of the cars to come off of Gay Street and onto the project site. So there's plenty of queuing space for parents to drop off students that are not, they're not backed up on Gay Street. The other aspect is that the Deerfield School, at the Deerfield School, there's approximately 85% of the students are currently ride a bus. And so we are anticipating that those same students would continue riding buses to the Hanlon site. And so we are not anticipating that this would cause significant additional traffic to the school.
Thanks, Rob. We have a question from Kate W. Hi, where will the extended day area be at the new school? So I know you have a slide for that, Rob.
Yeah, let me get there. So just opposite from the administration area is the extended day area. So you can see in this dark purple here. So the idea is that they will have able to view people as they come in and can buzz them in after school hours, and so they'll have direct view to the outside. So they're right here in the heart of this public zone.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just scrolling back up. We have a comment from Sandra Castaldini. Please add the survey link to the chat. I actually believe Emily Parks did do that later on in the chat, so that should be there now. From Peter Schuler to, this is for Doran Whittier. We've got 3 questions here. Number 1, for this new school of about 114,000 square feet, is the 18+ acres of land needed for this project higher or lower than the average land use for other similarly sized schools you have designed? Well, so why don't you answer that? We'll do them one at a time.
Yeah, so typically for schools, 20 acres is the standard. And that may increase for high schools, where you might have a track and field and so forth. It might be up to 25 acres, but approximately 20 acres is the standard for most schools.
Okay. Number 2, will the fields have lights? I believe at this time we are not planning on lighting the field, and I don't think we haven't discussed lighting the field, and I don't think that at this point we have any plans to do that. And number 3, will you promise to not build a fence around the school? So we have been talking about fencing. Specifically, we've been talking about using more natural features to serve as a sort of quasi fencing. Hanlon currently, I believe, does Hanlon have a fence now in the woods, Rob, do you know? Or does anybody on the call know?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No fencing in the woods, Maya, just along Gay Street and to close in the playground area.
Yeah, so I think, those are for safety reasons, clearly. And I think to the extent we have fencing, it would be for those reasons and not to necessarily fence in the school. Again, we're really trying to make this a school in the woods. So to have the woods as a natural fence would be something I think that all of us would like to see. Okay. Sorry, I'm losing my train here. So we have another question from Sandra Castaldini. I love the double indoor basketball court. Will there be any outdoor basketball court planned? Any thought to moving the preschool to this building? So we do plan for an outdoor basketball court right where Rob is circling in that hardscape play area. We know that there's one currently at the Hanlon. We wanted to make sure we brought that over. So there is one planned. And then in terms of moving the preschool to this building, I'm going to let Superintendent Parks or Sarah speak to that. I don't, maybe Emily, can you take that one?
So we are not currently planning to move the preschool to this building for now. We're keeping the preschool where it is. I think as somebody commented a few questions ago, we know we're building a building for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So never say never, but that isn't the immediate plan.
Great, thanks. This is a comment from Polly Attridge. This school is too large. Why are we building such a huge school? If you plan to fix the Sheehan in the near future, why do you have to build such a huge building now, like the Sunita Williams School? Also, what will happen with the Deerfield School? Why can't the 11v11 field and the baseball field be built at the Deerfield and pull the Hanlon forward? This makes no sense to me. So let me try and answer these one at a time. The size of the school was dictated by the enrollment that we have. As you recall, we're combining two schools here. We're combining the Hanlon and the Deerfield. And based on the projected enrollments, we think that the peak enrollment, meaning the maximum number of students over the next 15 years or 20 years, is going to be 560 students. So when you design a school, you design it as almost like on a square footage per pupil basis, and you need to have a certain amount of square footage per student. So the enrollment number, the 560 number, is what drove the size of the school. What will happen with the Deerfield School? So at the moment, the Deerfield School is currently clearly under the control of the school committee. Once we combine Hanlon and Deerfield, the school committee and the school district working together will take a look at Deerfield and see if there's any other use, school use for that building. For example, if a Sheehan project were to move forward and we would need temporary classrooms to house Sheehan students if we're renovating the Sheehan, we might look at the Deerfield to do that. If the school district determines that we don't need the Deerfield school any longer, that it doesn't, that there's no school purpose for it, then the Deerfield would actually be turned back over to the town and would go under the purview of the select board. Why can't the 11v11 field and the baseball field be built at the Deerfield and pull the Hanlon forward? So there's two reasons for that. As I mentioned, the Deerfield school may actually revert back to the town. There are fields there now that are in use, and I'm sure the town would continue to use those. The idea here is that we wanted to create additional fields for town use because the town really is crunched for field and gym space. So the Deerfield currently has fields already. We wanted to create more fields here. In addition, because of the size of the school, the closer it is to the street, the bigger it looks. So that's one of the reasons why it's set where it is, sort of further off the street. I also wanted to point out that having the soccer field and the Little League field at the front of the property gives you this sort of green band that runs along Gay Street, which actually is more attractive than having a parking lot smack dab on the street, on the side of the street. So again, we're trying to minimize the scale of the building, for two reasons. First, for the students, because a lot of them are little people, but also for the residents and to sort of have this fit into Westwood. We're not a town that has these big schools. So the more we can make this school fit in with its natural environment and seem smaller, the better we're all going to be. So I hope I answered those questions. From Fran Fusco, how big is the lawn out back? Yes, I see that lawn. Rob, can you speak to that? Rob, I think you might be.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, this lawn is approximately 50 by 90 feet, 50 feet wide by about 90 feet long, more or less. It's designed to be a space to bring students out so they can put some cones down and kick the ball around a little bit. It's really not intended to be, a full-blown soccer field. It's really just a large kind of grassy area to let kids run around.
Thanks, Rob. From Josepha Jowdy, totally agree. Okay, I don't know what Joseph is agreeing with, but I hope it's something good. From Fran Fusco, is there enough parking for a 560 student school and do the windows open?
Yes, there is enough parking. We've calculated that based off of what we've typically designed for schools of this size. And a lot of it is based off of the planned faculty count. What was the other question?
Do the windows open?
Yes.
Okay, great. From Al Fusco, hi, thank you for providing another community forum. Can you speak to the security systems and solutions that are planned for this school as it is a larger elementary school, I'm specifically interested in the use of the outdoors by the children and associated security measures and perimeters. So we have already had initial discussions with the Westwood Police Department and the fire department about the school. And we are actually hoping to schedule additional meetings in the upcoming weeks with them. They will be, particularly the police will be very involved in the security designs and the security systems that we install in the school. We may not get into it in too much detail in public for security reasons, but please rest assured that the Westwood Police will be absolutely informing this project for security systems and solutions. From Kate W. Good evening. I like this very much and would love to hear about how the floor plan supports student safety in an active shooter situation. And I would like to see the school committee take advantage of all of their resources, including and sunlight. All of these canopies should be attractive and solar. So I think I addressed the security, the active shooter situation. Again, we will have the police involved in the design of any security measures that we install in the building. In terms of the school committee taking advantage of all of their resources, including sunlight, I think, Rob, can you speak a little bit to the sort of sunlight issue and the daylight analysis we've done?
Sure. So the way that the building is oriented, so north is up and south is down. So each of these classrooms are oriented to allow the majority of the sunlight to come in through the north or south side. Those are the sides that you can control the most. So on the north side, you really don't even need to have any shades up. On the south side, we've integrated some shading elements. So that will allow the windows to be open and exposed to as much sunlight as possible to get into the indirect sunlight to enter into the space. Outside of each of these extended learning areas, we're envisioning larger glass areas that would look directly out to the wooded area beyond. And then we also have skylights that are planned. It's further in the presentation, but maybe I can show a little bit on the floor plan some of the locations for that. So in each of these extended learning areas, we plan to have skylights to bring some natural light into the center areas. Skylight in the center of the library, media center as well. Another skylight that would come down in the middle of the stair tower here. Some skylights in this portion of the cafeteria. This is planned to be all glass, looking out into the woods here, and then some skylights along the central Main Street here, and then in addition to windows on the north and south of the gym, we're also planning some skylights in the middle of the gym. So there'll be an abundance of natural light coming into the building throughout.
Thanks, Rob. We have a comment from Jim Gerleo, or a question. As the plans get more finalized, will the architects provide a walkthrough opportunity for the public to get an idea where major components such as driveways, parking fields, and the building itself will be situated? It's hard to visualize what the design will look and feel like at ground level. I agree, Jim. It is hard to visualize it. And Rob can speak more to this, but we will be planning a walkthrough opportunities. What we're also, well, I don't know about walkthrough if it's an active construction site, but what we are going to be doing is Westwood Media Center has offered to work with us to provide sort of ongoing construction updates where we'll film them. We'll have, someone from the SBC actually walking through the building, and it will be filmed and available on the Westwood Media Center website and on YouTube so that people can actually see what it looks like on the ground. Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, as you said, we won't be able to allow people to go onto the construction site, but later on, once we get to the point of finished buildings, we can certainly bring people through there. I guess I'm not really sure. Yeah, Chin had a question.
Rob, I think it's this might be more like a 3D model flight through.
Oh, so they can kind of get a feel for what it looks like ahead of time. Sure. I mean, we'll be providing a continued development of our 3D model so that it will be a little bit more realistic once we get closer to a finished design. And so we can show it from different vantage points so you can kind of get a better feel for it. This model is very kind of conceptual in terms of the software. So with the next iteration of the development of the 3D model, we'll be able to visualize that a little bit better.
Great, thanks, Rob. A question from Amanda. What is the area in the back of the gym on the plans? Do you want to go back to that site?
Are you talking about right
that
here?
Oh yeah, maybe she means that.
So this is there's a physical a phys ed instructor's office here and some gym storage, and then back here this is where the pumps are planned and the for the mechanical systems. This is a receiving area for new supplies and recycle and trash storage room. This is the main water service entrance and the main electrical service entrance coming into the building. And then you go to the site plan. This is the service drive here. So when trucks come in, they would come up here and then back in to either pick up the dumpsters or to deliver materials into that service area.
Thanks, Rob. From Fran Fusco, if a new Sheehan will be built, why can't we make two schools the same size? Again, Fran, this is an issue of enrollment. That we have 560 students at peak in this school. And I think at Sheehan, we would have, I don't remember the number offhand, but it's somewhere in the 300s. I want to say 325. So if we build a new Sheehan, it would be for that number of students. It would be a much smaller school. So the two schools would not be the same size. This is a question from Lucy Shuka. Can you please speak to the impact to Laura Lane? Specifically, will you need to cut down the trees between Laura Lane and the school? What about access to the trailhead and the area noted as parking for the trails? Thank you for offering this forum. Rob, do you want to speak to the Laura Lane impact?
Sure. So our intention is to keep as many of these trees as possible. So all of the trees to the north of this roadway right here, we would try to maintain and not touch. If we did need to remove some trees just because we need to get the road in, we would come back and supplement those with additional trees. And we will work with the residents on Laura Lane to make sure that there's adequate buffer there, landscape buffer or otherwise, to maintain this sort of buffer zone between Laura Lane and the school park. And what was the second part of that question?
Access to the trailhead and the area noted as parking for the trails.
Yeah, so the idea here is that these spaces down here are not only able to be used for the Little League and soccer fields, but they're also intended for anyone that wants to go to the trails can park along here, or we also slipped in a few right on this side. And the idea is that we would provide a new trailhead right here with this trail that would then extend out and around and then connect to that rural trail. So really trying to enhance that. And then we're also looking for comments from the public on whether additional signage is desired. You know, if some sort of informational signs about the history of the area, or the birds that are in the woods, or some sort of educational aspect. Does it make sense for us to integrate some of those signs along this new stretch that we're providing? So we're really looking to enhance the trails from what there is today.
Thanks, Rob. So Kate is now clarifying she meant solar panels, not windows. Sorry about that. So the building will, in the base design, we are already, the building will be PV panel ready. The roof, I should say, will be PV panel ready. So it can certainly take solar panels. As Rob mentioned earlier, the SBC has a sustainability subcommittee. They are now going to be looking at net zero energy and looking to see what the goals of the SBC should be and make a recommendation to the SBC regarding solar and anything related to that renewable energy issue. So those meetings are public. You're welcome to view them. I'm not sure when the next meeting is off the top of my head, but I think it's soon. We will be, so that's sort of TBD, but regardless of the decision of the SBC, the roof will be PV panel ready. That's already a given.
Yeah, and all of the infrastructure associated with that will be integrated to the building.
Yep, great. From Donna Morrison, very concerned about Lowell Woods being cleared. I'd like to make clear that we are not touching Lowell Woods, that this property that we're moving into is called Shuttleworth. It's a separate parcel of land from Lowell Woods. This is a parcel of land that was deeded, that the town actually purchased from Dedham, I think back in 1969. And the reason it purchased it was to use it for school purposes. So the Shuttleworth property you can see on the screen is in blue. Everything to the left of it, this Mulville Hill Conservation, Lowell Woods, Grimm Conservation, that's really what everybody thinks of as Lowell Woods. I know that there are trails that connect the Hanlon school to the Lowell Woods area through the Shuttleworth property. So I think that's probably why people think we're moving into Lowell Woods. But I just want to be clear that we are not touching Lowell Woods, and we will absolutely be continuing the access to Lowell Woods. We will not touch that. From Polly Attridge, what about radon? Is this site all ledge? Will the costs be higher than anticipated due to the topography? Rob, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we have done some initial test borings and test pits on the site. Number one, to just evaluate the soil conditions for soil bearing capacity as well as drainage for stormwater. But we're also looking to see what we run into down below the surface. And we did come across ledge. The areas that in particular are roughly in this general vicinity here, and there was a little bit in this area as well. And so that is telling us that we will need to address that as part of the project. And so there will be some cutting of the soil and earth in this area and infilling in this area. Was there anything more to that question?
No, I think that's good. If Polly, if you have more on the radon issue, you can certainly type it in the chat. Oh,
the radon. Yes. So we are planning to incorporate radon mitigation measures into the design. So we are already planning for that, and that'll be included in the project.
okay. Thanks, Rob. From Fran Fusco, can we make this school less modern and more classic New England looking? The Maria Hastings Elementary School in Lexington would be more in line with the classic look. Again, this is feedback that's valuable for us to have. So if you can put it into that Google form where we're collecting it, that would be helpful. I know that the look that we're going for here was sort of informed more by nature. I think the classical New England is not quite as informed by nature, but I'm not the architect. So I don't know, Rob, if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to what really drew us to the site and our original thinking was this kind of school in the woods, and really the earth, rock, trees, and so trying to keep it simple and complementary to the woods. So allowing the woods to kind of stand out and have something that's very simple that kind of blends into the woods and doesn't stand out like, oh, there's a new, brick, you know, building that's going up in there. We want it to be a little bit more streamlined and integrated into the woods.
Thanks, Rob. From Amanda, where are the bathrooms?
Go to that slide. Bathrooms are always important. So when we have the main portion of the building here, when you first come in, there are a set of bathrooms right here, both multi-stall and single user. These will serve as the primary bathrooms for the gym or the cafeteria. And then any of these kind of smaller purple rooms here, you'll see are additional bathrooms. Each of the kindergarten classrooms have bathrooms integrated into each of the classrooms. And then there's multi-stall bathrooms down in this wing, another set of bathrooms just directly above it on the second floor, and then single-user bathrooms kind of sprinkled around the building.
Okay. From Jim Gerleo, because my driveway is near the north driveway, I'm particularly concerned about my ability to safely enter and exit my driveway. How far away will the northern driveway be situated from the northern property line?
So today the drive, I believe comes in like right about here. So it's very close to Laura Lane, the existing drive. And so we've pulled that down in order to have this distance further away from Laura Lane. I believe this is roughly 150 feet, maybe between 100 to 150 feet away from the Laura Lane road.
Okay. From Amanda, thank you for this forum. Is the parking for the Scout House remaining?
So what we're doing here is providing parking along here with a sidewalk leading directly to the Scout House. So it's easy for anyone to come here, park, and then go directly there.
Thanks.
And we're not touching anything on the Scout House property.
Okay, great. Thank you. From Donna Morrison, the endowment for Lowell Woods was for recreation and not for building of schools. Please address at what point the town will stop taking land trusts, Mulville Hills and Shuttleworth properties not intended for school building. So I want to clarify again that we're only on the Shuttleworth property. We're not on the Lowell Woods or the Mulville Hill property. I can't speak to the town's intentions. Really, we're just focusing on the intention of the school building committee with this project. And the Shuttleworth property, as I mentioned, was purchased for school purposes, which is why we feel that, you know, taking a portion, that bottom sort of southeastern corner of the property for the new school expansion is appropriate. We understand the connection to Lowell Woods that the town has. We're trying to preserve as much of it as we can. But again, just to clarify, we are not on Lowell Woods. From Kate W, great panel, thank you. Thank you, Kate. From Pete Schuler, the January 30, 2020 Sustainability Workshop presentation listed preservation of natural landscape as an important site feature. Does this design support that objective? Rob?
Yeah, we believe that it does because we are really trying to take kind of a surgical approach to development of the site. We are trying to limit the amount of development. As you can see, even right here, for example, in this image, we are really trying to maintain as much of the existing woods and trying to have that view out of the cafeteria directly into the woods. Carving, you know, immediately around the area that we're developing and integrating as much of those trees as possible. So at the beginning of this project, when we begin construction and even on the on our drawings, we will be indicating and drawing a line for contractors to say, okay, you know, these trees we need to hold on to. We're going to go through and tag them. And so that we try to maintain as many of the existing trees as possible. As you can see, all of the darker green elements here is where we're hoping to maintain all of the existing trees.
And I think, Rob, we're also going to be replanting a lot of new trees as well, correct?
Exactly. As you can see by the lighter green circles on here, these are the, I don't know if we can afford all of these trees, but we're going to try.
We're going to buy as many trees as we can.
Yes. As well as ground cover, areas that can feel a little bit more like woodlawn, so it's not just all this, grass, and that's for two reasons. One is so that it blends into the wooded area, but for, two, it's also trying to minimize the amount of maintenance that's needed. We want to promote vegetation that is natural to the area, that minimizes the use of water or watering. So we're not coming in here and just turning everything over to the lawn.
Great.
We're trying to integrate the natural landscape into the design.
Thanks, Rob. Question from Polly Attridge. Will there be blasting if there is a ton of ledge? How will that affect the neighborhood?
So we are anticipating some blasting of the ledge, and we'll be getting into that a little bit further as we further develop the design. But our expectation is that we will be doing surveys. We'll be requiring the contractor to provide surveys for each of the homes in the area, and all of the surrounding neighbors will be notified, and we'll be meeting with them in advance to kind of go through and talk through all the specifics of the process. There's a very regulated process for the ledge removal in that way, and so we'll be setting up future meetings to meet specifically on that topic.
Great, thank you. From Mary Kate Ferreira, in response to the signage in the woods, I'd love to see those written by the students after some research projects about habitat within and history of the land surrounding the school. That is a fabulous idea. I'm sure Sarah loves that, and Josh loved that idea as well. So thanks, Mary Kate. Great idea. From Al Fusco, with reference to school size, I believe Fran was asking why we don't plan to have equal student enrollments in the new Hanlon and new renovated Sheehan, i.e. 400 students per school. I'm going to let Emily speak to this a little bit. I know she was having connectivity problems. I think she's still here, but basically it really comes down to a function of when the schools are opening and the redistricting. We only want to redistrict once because it's incredibly disruptive. And we feel that we're redistricting in the least disruptive manner possible, but there still will be some disruption. And at the time this new school opens, we're not sure what status the Sheehan will be in. So we have to consolidate Deerfield and Hanlon into this particular school. We can't split it between Sheehan and Hanlon. So that's why we can't sort of evenly spread them. The redistricting and the timing doesn't work that way. Emily, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's right.
I think we're losing you.
Oh,
yeah, I think we lost you there.
Okay.
All right, I think that's the short answer. And Fran, if you want to follow up with me and Emily, we can certainly clarify that more for you. Mark asked for the tiny URL website again. Emily provided it. Mark thanked her, so that's a very nice exchange. Fran, why would you not project for more students at Sheehan like you are for Hanlon? So we are, we have that number. And as I said, I don't have it off the top of my head, but Fran, we can certainly provide you with that number. A new Sheehan would certainly go to the max enrollment as we would do here. So we do have that number. Jim said, yikes, I had north and south confused. I'm at the southern side. So Rob, can you just do a quick explanation of the southern side with respect to Jim's question?
Yeah, I think he was looking for the distance right on the,
Yep,
off
I
the
think
property
so, yeah.
line.
Yep.
So I believe this is probably about 50 feet, maybe 60 feet off of the property line here, more
Okay.
or less.
Thanks. We have a comment from Polly. Agreed, Jim. From Fran Fusco, the Sunita Williams School in Needham is not in the woods. It looks the same as this school. I'm not a fan of the look. Again, if you could put that feedback into the form, that would be great, Fran. Thank you. From Christina Martin, have you put any of the images in the Google form in front of children for feedback? I would love to know if you showed 2 images to a kindergartner, which one they would choose as a preference. Can you show it to older kids and get their general feedback on whether it looks like a school they would be excited to attend? It would have to be clear that they have the option to say no and to provide their own suggestions too. I think that's a great idea. We have had students involved in this process earlier on. I think that we can certainly talk to Rob and Sarah and Josh and see how we can get kids involved again. So thank you for that suggestion. Donna, exactly, impacting all abutters, sitting on ledge, clear cutting land to make a green school. Okay, I'm not sure. I think that's just a comment. From Fran Fusco, will there be netting or high fencing by the road for fields? I don't think there'll be netting.
We can take a look at that. You know, we've tried to distance the Little League field, you know, from the road substantially, so it may not be necessary. Certainly, you know, take a look at that. If that's
Rob, can you
if
just
that's necessary.
simply explain where the setback line, do you remember what the exact setback dimension? Just give people a sense of how far away from the roadway that will be.
Yeah, so this baseline right here, or I'm sorry, this baseline here for the baseball field is probably about 40 to 50 feet from the road, from the edge of the road.
Okay. More of a comment, this is from Ellen Rawlings, more of a comment than a question, but I'd ask you to use native plants and trees on your planting so as not to disrupt the neighboring ecosystems. Thanks, Ellen. We'll certainly talk to the landscape architect about that. From Donna Morrison, cost estimate is already 72 to 85 million. Outdoor classrooms are nice, but not required. What can be done about the costs? So I will say we are extremely focused on cost, especially given the current economic environment. When we have the cost estimates back, we will be looking very carefully at everything we have in this. And we will be making decisions based on, you know, what we feel is important to the project and what we feel can be let go. We've already talked about alternates. So we certainly are looking at cost very closely. I'm going to kind of go through these very quickly. I'm conscious of time. It's already 8:30 and I see we have 19 new comments in this chat. At some point I am going to cut it off just because of time. I want everyone to have time to comment. But I'm just going to kind of run through these quickly. From Amanda, I hope a portion of the history from both schools is brought to the new school. Thank you. Yeah, that's an important point because we are combining 2 schools here. From Pete Schuler, I'm opposed to this new elementary school because it requires removal of almost 10 acres of trees and wildlife habitat from the Shuttleworth property. I'm deeply concerned that allowing development on that land, no matter how good the cause, will set a precedent that leads to a continued development on the rest of the Shuttleworth property. I wish the school committee could find a way to build a great new school that provides full access to the woods without destroying 9.5 acres of woods. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Pete. From Christina Martin, the school design is very blunt. It's very distinct what is nature and what is school. It should blend like an outdoor living space. Again, I would ask that you put all of these comments on the Google form. From Archer 44, Newton North is a larger population of students and a smaller parking lot. Why does Westwood need such a large parking lot? I think that we're actually under the parking required by the town of Westwood. Is that right, Rob?
I believe so, yes. And the number of spaces really is dictated by the number of faculty and parents and visitors that are planning to come.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know, I don't see any more comments on here. I don't know where I got 19 new ones. So I think that's it. Oh wait, Polly Attridge, if you take out the fields and move the school forward, it lessens the impact on the woods. Right, we would have to use less, but as I mentioned, we do feel that the fields are an important contribution, not just to the school, but to the community. And we also feel that moving the school forward would create the school would seem much bigger than than we'd like it to. From Archer 44, thank you for the question reading. You're welcome. From Franz Fusco, I was able to visit the Sunita Williams. The outdoor classroom space is only as good as how it is maintained. Fran, you're absolutely right. I 100% agree with that. And that's something that we need to think about when we're looking at these outdoor classrooms is not just installing them, but how are we going to maintain them? How are we going to use them practically? From Polly Outridge, keep the Deerfield School, don't turn it back to the town and use it for fields. I do think it's currently used for fields, but as I said, if the school district doesn't need the school, then it will have to go back to the town. I believe whatever the town does with it will have to go to town meeting. So I think the residents will get a say in that. So I think that's it. And I'm actually gonna close the chat. I can't physically close it, but I'm going to sort of stop the chat because we're at 8:30, which is exactly where we wanted to be. We are I think Emily just put the URL back up again. So I absolutely encourage everybody to go to that URL to fill out the Google form, give us all of the comments that we've heard tonight. The actual school, the design of the school is there as well. So please look at that. In particular, give us comments. We're going to be collecting these and disseminating this information back out to the community in some form. I don't think we've decided quite yet what we're going to be doing, but we are going to be giving this information, what we've collected back out to the community. I want to thank everybody for participating. As we've said from the beginning, the more people that come to these forums and give us feedback, the better this project will be. So I thank everybody for their engagement. I hope that everyone continues to be engaged. If you have a question that wasn't answered tonight, or you think of a new one, there is always the form that you can submit on the Westwood school building, elementary school building project website. It's under the school district website. There's a Google form there that you can fill out, and you can submit any questions. We try and answer them within 2 to 3 days. Sometimes it takes us a while to just get the information. But again, I want to thank everyone. I know that we have to officially adjourn this meeting. So I want to thank our panelists, particularly Rob, Tim, Chin, and Don for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the chair of the school committee, Carol.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you all for your great work. And this was an excellent and very informative presentation. So we appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, I need a motion to adjourn. Are there any other school committee members still here?
So moved.
How about a second?
Second.
Thank you. Maya,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So we are adjourning, and thank you all again. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.